For much of the 20th century, communism seemed to advance without finding a real obstacle to the Soviet Union, extended its influence over Eastern Europe, while the West observed with concern the growth of a powerhouse that I promised to change the world. Many die, that no one would be able to stop her, but they were about to make a mistake. In a small village in England, a woman was born that challenged all expectations, did not come from a powerful family, did not have an aristocratic surname, and no one imagined who would come to govern one of the most important nations on the planet, but with an unwavering will, would change the course of history from its decisions to divided an entire country. For some, it was the leader that brought greatness back to Britain. For other, a relentless ruler who will never. But even its most critical critics acknowledge that a truth. Margaret Thatcher became one of the most influential faces of the Cold War and one of the biggest opponents of Soviet communism. Over time, the whole world would know it by a name that perfectly reflected his personality, the Iron Lady. But before becoming a feared figure and respected by allies and adversaries, was a child who grew up observing how war transformed forever the destiny of Europe. Margaret Hilda Roberts was born the 13th of October 1925 in Grantham, a small English town. His father owned a modest store of groceries and actively participated in local politics. It was he who taught him the value of effort, discipline, and responsibility, principles that would mark his entire life. When Margaret was only 14 years old, World War II began. Although his city did not suffer the devastation of London, war was present in every British home. The blackouts, nightly rationing, and frontline news taught him that freedom was never guaranteed, and to defend it demanded sacrifices. Those years awakened in her a deep admiration for the strength of the British people, understood that the decisions of the leaders could change the fate of millions of people, and that in the face of threats, firmness was so important as courage. Without knowing it, was forming the character that would define his entire political career. The war is over. Entered the University of Oxford to study chemistry. However, his true passion was politics, while the United Kingdom was trying to. Wise Margaret analyzed carefully the country's economic and social problems, gradually began to develop ideas that later would challenge the dominant model in Great Britain. Upon completion of his studies, Margaret, as a chemist, and later studied law at the same time, began to actively participate in the party, playing for several years, suffered electoral defeats but never gave up his dream. Every Tuesday strengthened his determination to come to the British Parliament at a time in which the policy was dominated by men. Few believed that a woman could lead the United Kingdom. Margaret ignored criticism. Its firm character, their discipline, and ability to defend their ideas began to turn her into a figure increasingly respected within the party. Built in the late 1970s, Great Britain was going through one of the worst crises in its history. Inflation was high and unemployment was rising, and strikes paralyzed hospitals, schools, factories, and transportation. The so-called winter of discontent made millions of Britons feel that their country was losing control. In the midst of that crisis appeared Margaret Thatcher with a completely different message, promised to reduce the power of the unions, control inflation, and restore strength to the British economy. His proposals were controversial, but they offered a way out when many lived that no longer existed. No solution. In May 1979 was elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. becoming, in the first woman to occupy that position, his rival marked a before and after. In British politics from day one, made it clear that he would not govern to seek popularity, but to transform the country. His first decisions were so profound, as controversial reduced the size of the state, promoted, fought the darkness, and proclaimed the enormous power of the unions. Thousands of people supported his reforms, while thousands more took to the streets to protest. Great Britain was deeply divided. Long before he came to power, Margaret had delivered a speech in which she warned about the danger, which represented the expansion. Sovietic, a Red Army newspaper responded, calling it the Iron Lady. What was intended to be an insult ended up becoming the symbol of his leadership. Far from rejecting that nickname, Thatcher proudly adopted him. For her, it represented firmness, necessary to defend democracy and freedom in the face of any threat, as long as the world was still divided by the Cold War, the stage that would make it into one of the main adversaries of communism, Soviet Union. During the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher strengthened a relationship key with the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. The same vision to slow down the expansion of communism and weaken the influence of the Soviet Union in the world. This alliance became one of the most important of the Cold War, while maintaining boosted a technological and military career. Against Thatcher's URSS strongly supported these policies from Europe. His position was clear: in economic and political pressure should force the Soviet bloc to weaken itself from within. This coordination between the two leaders changed the global balance of power. In 1982, its leadership inaugurated one of its first major tests, the Falklands War. When Argentina invaded the islands, Thatcher made an immediate and firm decision: respond militarily despite initial doubts. Ordered a naval operation thousands of kilometers away of the United Kingdom. The British victory in the Falklands greatly reinforced its political position. For many, Thatcher citizens had demonstrated that the United Kingdom could still project strength and defend its territories. Its popularity grew significantly, consolidating its image as a relentless leader. However, within the country was facing an equally hard battle in conflict with unions, especially in the industry of the dessert. Droughts paralyzed entire regions of the dessert and deeply divided to British society. Thatcher maintained her position without backing down, even in the face of massive protests on the international stage. His speech against the Soviet Union became more and more direct. Thatcher denounced the communist system as a threat to individual freedom and to economic progress. Its firmness made her one of the Western voices most influential in the last years of the war. Cold in the late 1980s, the Soviet Union was beginning to show clear signs of weakness. The economy was stagnant, and the political system faced increasing internal tensions. The ideas that Margaret Thatcher and her allies defended in the West seemed to be beginning to impose themselves on the global stage. In 1989, the world witnessed one of the most symbolic moments of the 20th century. The fall of the Berlin Wall, for decades, had represented the division between two systems, irreconcilable. Its collapse marked the beginning of the end of the Cold War and progressive collapse of the communist bloc in Europe. Margaret Thatcher had already reached the height of its influence, but he was also beginning to face political confrontation within the United Kingdom. Its economic reforms had transformed the country, but also generated deep social divisions. His leadership was admired by some and rejected by others. In 1990, after intense pressure within his own party, Margaret Thatcher resigned as Prime Minister. His departure marked the end of an era in British politics had been the longest-lived leader of the 20th century in the United Kingdom, and the first woman to change the course of the country. From power today, its history is still remembered. Like that of a woman who defied the rules of his time, faced crisis, internal and external, and became one of the most important figures in the world, influential of the 20th century. His legacy remains a warning, and one embodies the power of one conviction, can change course of a nation and even the world.
Imagine a Labour canvasser talking on the doorstep to those East German families when they settle in on freedom's side of the wall. You want to keep more of the money you earn? I'm afraid that's very selfish. We shall want to tax that away. You want to earn shares in your firm? We can't have that. The state has to own your firm. You want to choose where to send your children to school? That's very divisive. You'll send your child where we tell you. Mr. President, the trouble with Labour is that they're just not at home with freedom. Socialists don't like ordinary people choosing, or they might not choose socialism.